Oh.
Professor Xanya Sofra, Ph.D., has a doctorate in neurophysiology from City University London, UK, and a doctorate in clinical psychology. Okay, from the New School for Social Research, New York, United States. And she has a very impressive curriculum vitae, including that many books already, research, and all the experience and award-winning speaking in several level educational institutions. And she has lectured in several countries, including UK, United States, France, Thailand, Singapore, Australia, Malaysia, and Indonesia. So without further ado, please, Professor Xanya Sofra, the time is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be back in Indonesia and to be in the swamp. And we're going to be talking about the myths and the realities of hair treatments. Where is it? Just a second, we have some technical problems here. Okay, so here we go. I don't think I've done something here. Okay, I can do it this way. This doesn't work. Okay, so I have no conflict of interest, as you will find out. And I have, some of this research is based on my books. I have written 56 articles and I have published several books. My most recent books has sold 52,883 copies. Just recently, it was published like maybe 5-6 months ago. And it's about being brainwashed by marketing. First of all, one thing that I would like to deliver to you today is don't believe something just because it's on print. Why? Because a lot of this research is being paid for. So if you see here on the left, this is all the requests that I get daily to publish articles. And about 70% of them, they want me to pay them to publish the articles. And of course, I won't do that. But this is, I'm sure a lot of authors are getting these requests. So you need to look for conflict of interest, and that's going to be at the ending of the article. You're going to see what it says, acknowledgements, and that's just going to tell you whether this research is being paid off or whether this research is being done as a gift to science. The very important thing is that you need to look at the data. So some people say, I got 99.9%, 0.001. However, when you look at the data, about 34% of the subjects enjoyed the hair growth, but 66% did not get the results. Well, that is over here, you see? That's 34%, and it should be, actually, it should be all the way to the end. And therefore, these results are not significant. So you need to look for significance and you need to analyze the data. Now, animal models, there's a lot of research that has been based on animal models. It's not really appropriate for hair treatments. Why? Because there are major limitations of the mainstream mouse models for human hair loss research. There's a lot of limitations. It's not the same thing when you get this research. The other thing is that you need to look for the emperor has no claws. They say we got these fantastic results, and you look at the pictures and you go like, well, I don't see it. Look with your eyes, not without being brainwashed. And what, like this, for example, this research, they looked 5% minoxidil, and they also combined it with a fractional laser, if you look at the results, there is no difference. So you don't know which one was that gave the results, whether it was the minoxidil or the laser. The other most important thing is ask for longitudinal studies. What happened 10 years after the treatment? This is extremely important because you do not get the results. You get results immediately, and then there is a deleterious effect, adverse effects later on. So what causes hair loss? A lot of things: autoimmune system, hormonal imbalance, thyroid conditions, nutrient deficiencies, genetics. So let's go to the source. And if we know the source, if we know why, then we know how to treat it. So why do we age, first of all? Age is a systemic problem, and also hair loss is a systemic problem. Our entire system starts breaking down. There is broken links, and those broken links will cause the aging as well as the hair loss. Now, when the body is synchronized, that is anti-aging. So hair loss, hormonal imbalance causes more than hair loss. It causes pigmentations, headaches, the little belly that we see. I'm going to be talking about that on the 8th, hysteria, etc. And systemic imbalance has to do with hair loss. So hair loss is not just something that happens, it's not a random event, it's systemic imbalance. For example, DHEA decline will speed up aging and therefore the hair loss. Testosterone is another very important hormone, and that will cause hair loss. As you can see, this is a problem that indicates a testosterone problem. So why can we not inject testosterone, like get an injection? Why not? You cannot do that because when you inject, there is a lot of incidents, according to this article and a lot of other articles, of liver toxicity and hair loss. In other words, you inject testosterone and then you end up getting more hair loss as a result of that. Now, very important is nutrition, and zinc, B12 and biotin are some of the most important nutrients that are necessary for the hair growth. And there's a lot of research that has shown that patients with hair loss had lower values of zinc versus patients with no hair loss. They had higher values of zinc in their system. And then there was other more research that you looked at low testosterone, lower zinc levels in athletes, and there's negative correlations between testosterone and copper. Now, very important is the imbalanced metabolism. D3, TSH, D4, all of those values are very important. They're very closely associated with hair loss. So low metabolism is hair loss, and low metabolism causes depression, and depression will also cause hair loss. So hair loss and inflammation is another huge chapter that you need to consider. So you cannot use inflammatory foods or inflammatory technologies and then expect to get hair growth. So there is a significant inflammatory infiltrates and lymphocytes and leukocytes as in this particular article. And so if high inflammation is going to be hair loss, high inflammation is going to create emotional issues, and the emotional issues and stress will also lead to hair loss. So it's all connected, your mind, your body, it's one thing. So now, current hair growth solutions have been done a lot with radiofrequency. What's the problem with radiofrequency? It causes systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation will lead to eventual hair loss. Here comes the need for long long-term studies, longitudinal studies, because you might get the stimulation that will initially create a hair growth and eventually is going to lead to more hair loss. Why does radio frequency produce hair loss? Because it denatures proteins. And what happens when you denature a protein is like when you fry an egg. But the problem is that if you denature one protein, then all the proteins around it are going to be affected. So it's going to be like a domino effect, a negative domino effect. So, but however, radio frequency as well as lasers are extremely useful for hair removal. So in 15 out of 19 studies, the utility of a RF has been for hair removal. And they are very efficient lasers for hair removal. And they are recommended for that particular indication. Now, let's talk about stem cells and hair loss. Okay, here we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the good is that, you know, that you do see a lot of benefits with hair stem cells. However, you also, there is a problem with immunorejection. In other words, the system does reject it, your immune system, and there is a problem with cancer formation, tumorigenesis. So primarily, the mesenchymal stem cells are probably much better or more safer than the embryonic stem cells. Why? Because embryonic stem cells most likely will create teratomas and cancers. However, the mesenchymal stem cells, with senescence, they start decreasing differentiation capacity. Now, here is the problem. Stem cells that can only proliferate but does not differentiate will end up as a cancer cell. So when decreased differentiation, when you hear decreased differentiation, you hear big danger. So applause transplantation, what you see with the embryonic stem cells, you see a lot of teratoma formations. That's why stem cell companies now are not doing very well. They just have started kind of reducing their sales. So arrested differentiation is a controlled proliferation. Uncontrolled proliferation is equal to cancer formation. So that is a very dangerous thing. And this is when I'm saying you need to look at longitudinal studies. This is crucial for stem cells. You need to see what happened 10 years later. Because yes, you fix the problem today, and then 10 years later you got cancer. Well, that's not very good, is it? So stem cell companies and clinics tell you the good, but they don't tell you the bad or the ugly. And there is a gray area between a kind of good faith and basically being deceived. Now, exosomes, just a little bit about the new star of anti-aging, which is the exosomes. So this is the exosomes, this is the stem cell. Basically, exosomes started in 2013 with a Nobel Prize, and then sort of it became a huge area of, research. Now, exosome therapy, the exosomes contain lipids, they contain messengers RNA, microRNA, signaling molecules. They are like the FedEx or the DHL carrying packages. So whatever, the exosomes are vesicles that basically carry information from one cell to the other. The problem with information, it can be good or it can be bad information, or it can be nonsense signals. So the most important thing about exosomes is the purification process, because they have a lot of contaminants, and if they do have contaminants and they're contaminated, then they will carry nonsense signals. The proteins are going to be disturbed, they're going to be unfolded, the signals are going to be nonsense, and if the signals are nonsense, the system is going to be in a chaos, and that's the last thing you want. So there is a dark side to exosomes that you have to consider. They can carry harmful molecules, and they can also help tumor growth. So you can use it for hair, and it's very good for hair. However, there can be problems if there is impurities in them that will not show immediately, but they will show later on. And again, very important, long-term, longitudinal studies. You need to have the studies, or you cannot have. Now, this is a new technology. Actually, it started in the 50s, but only very recently it has become a real technology. And it's called the Foster Energy Resonance Energy Transfer. Basically, what this is one cell influences another cell through resonance. Now, you can see the difference in the high concentration of the Foster resonance energy transfer and the low concentration, how it makes a huge difference in the communication. So you communicate through resonance. It's like your psychic. And here you see how in neuron there is a chain reaction. So instead of having a short reaction of the neuron, the reaction is extended more and more and more. So you have a much more bigger effect. What is the trick here? Here is the trick. You cannot resonate with dissimilar entities. So it's like you cannot multiply oranges with apples. If you multiply 2 oranges with 2 apples, you still have 2 oranges. But if you multiply 2 oranges with 4 oranges, you're gonna have 8 oranges. So basically, you have to be very careful. What you see here, do you see how the cells communicate from the distance? It's a very interesting phenomenon. This is through resonance. This is what resonance does. You need a very high microscope, very high power microscope, and now what you can see here is you can see how the energy from one cell is transferred to another. And what is life? Life is energy. And here, this is how basically you can compose different waveforms and make a very, very complex waveform that can actually communicate with the body. But this is a very complex process. You can see how it affects the cell. This is under the microscope, how the effects of resonance energy it can be transferred in the cell. And there are technologies that do signaling resonance, and there is some other technologies now that got it. They'll say, oh, resonance energy transfer, let's get it, we can do it with a laser. No. You cannot do that with a laser or with radio frequency. You can only do it at extremely low energies that this technology does not have. So it cannot be a trauma-based technology because that does not resonate with the body by definition. So there's no resonance energy transfer. So signaling resonance energy transfer is in fact something that will work. It's a New London University technology that synchronizes hormones and reinstates the systemic balance. And what we have found with this is we have found a very 52.20% increase in testosterone. And this is for people that did not have enough testosterone. So hair loss is a systemic problem. Remember that people that had low testosterone, they would lose hair. Now here, this will increase the hair. We also found, very interesting, with 290 subjects, 6 treatments, we found a significant decrease in the metabolic age from 49 to 32. So basically we conducted a clinical study, and this is the articles that published recently on this area, and this is before treatments. As soon as I did we did this, you can see his hair was standing up, so there was an immediate response, and then a few weeks later you could see significant hair growth, and his hair started growing black and new hair. This is from Alice M. As a matter of fact, this is a before and after, alopecia. As you can see before, and then the after, there was a significant growth, and that was with alopecia. This is another treatment after 3 months. And basically what we need to realize is that the ecosystem, the anti-aging ecosystem, is changing direction. And if you want to continue making money and not losing customers, you need to move towards health. And if you move towards health, then you are in a very good direction. Because after the pandemic, there has been a shift. And people losing clients and they're losing money, and they don't know why. It's because the most important thing right now is wellness. This is where the anti-aging system is going. So we need to focus on methods that improve the whole, the immune system as a whole, the body as a whole, that because the hormones influence the mind and the psychology, also the whole system is important to be fixed as a whole. So move towards health if you want to make money and if you want to kind of succeed. It's not easy to be a pioneer, but it's fascinating. Otherwise, all you do is you put the blindfold and you follow everybody else. So one message I'd like to leave you with is that health is beauty, but beauty is not health. Thank you. And now the most beautiful girl in Indonesia. A very wonderful professor.
Thank you, Professor Xanya Sofra.
And the youngest professor in the anti-aging medicine.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Xanya Sofra, for very distinguished speaking. And she reminded us that we have to be very careful also when we read journals on the website. And our next distinguished speaker, our last speaker for today is Professor Nora Leber.